The Goodwill Tour of the Creature Kings, Part 3, The Deep Ones. Molt woke before dawn, which he considered a personal insult. Rain tapped steadily against the window, soft, persistent. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes, tail flicking in a slow, irritated rhythm. Ginny hovered in the corner, quiet, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass. Mr. Feathers perched beside her, staring out at the grey morning like a pigeon contemplating the futility of existence. Then he made a small resigned sound and died. He toppled sideways with a soft donk against the window. Ginny caught him before he slid off, straightened his feathers and set him back upright. He blinked back to life, mildly annoyed but otherwise fine. "Worms today," Molt muttered. He paused. "To visit, I mean, not for breakfast." Mr. Feathers made a low judgmental coo. Ginny hid a smile behind her hand. Molt ignored both of them and reached for his filled notebook, battered, full of scribbles, smudges and the occasional pressed leaf. He flipped it open and began copying the previous day's notes onto his official scroll. The scroll unfurled itself with a faint rustle, edges glowing softly. His quill moved with him, but not because of him. It guided his hand more than he guided it. When he rolled the scroll closed, the ink vanished, sent instantly to the office's reports department, where some poor archivist would be reading it within seconds. "Paperwork never sleeps," he sighed. He unrolled the now clean scroll again and wrote a request for details on river entities in the region where the Pike Sovereign resided. He rolled it back up and made himself some toast. A few minutes later, the scroll glowed, incoming message. With toast and Marmite in one hand, he unrolled it and skimmed the dossier on local water spirits. He tried to get a sense of what the Pike could have been hinting at. It was also entirely possible the Sovereign had been lying in a fit of pique after being denied Molt as a snack. He closed the scroll and rubbed his stomach absently, a habit from months of pain in the aftermath of the flapjack incident. Pain that had alternately eased and worsened by train magic travel, except he realised he hadn't felt a twinge since Beryl's tea. He'd been wary the trains might bring it back on, but no, not even a flutter. Small mercies. He stood, stretching. Right, worms. Rain, maybe it'll put him in a good mood. Mr. Feathers made a doubtful noise. Molt sighed. Let's get this over with. The Worm God. Molt felt a tad trepidatious visiting the Worm God, considering how many he'd snapped on over the years. The threshold lay in a shallow dip in a Somerset field, a place where the earth felt soft, listening. Rain pattered gently across the grass, sinking into the soil in slow, contented breaths. Molt knelt, placed a spiral flint artifact on the ground and whispered the old incantation. The soil loosened, the world folded inward. He sank, not falling, descending, as though the earth itself made room for him. Warmth rose around him, darkness thickened, the scent of loam and rain wrapped around him like a blanket. He emerged into a vast cavern of living earth. The walls pulsed faintly, like the inside of a great creature breathing. Moisture beaded on the surfaces, warm as spring soil. Ginny drifted in through the cavern wall, silent and wide-eyed. Mr. Feathers materialised beside her, already regretting every decision that had led him here. A ripple passed through the soil. A voice rose, not from a mouth, but from the ground itself. Surface walker, tail bearer, warm blood adjacent. Molt bowed deeply. Esteemed God! The worm god shifted into view. Not one worm, but a colossal composite mass of earth flesh and glistening segments. Hints of ancient velvet worm lobes, faint bristles, deep soil pigmentation, a body shaped by 500 million years of burrowing. His true name pressed gently against Molt's ribs, a pressure pattern, the sensation of soil parting around a moving body. Impossible to speak, impossible to forget. The god's presence brushed Molt's mind, warm, curious, slightly hungry. You smell of rain, it murmured, and of yesterday's butterflies. Molt cleared his throat. I visited the Lepidoptera court. A good court, the god said. Fragile, brief, beautiful. They came long after us, after the first roots, after the first forests, after the first soil. A slow ripple passed through the cavern, a memory older than continents. Mr. Feathers made a small choking coo and died again, collapsing in a dramatic heap on the warm soil. Ginny scooped him up before he slid away. The worm god sounded pleased. "Ah, a fallen one. Would you like him buried? His nutrients would be most welcome." Mr. Feathers revived instantly, eyes wide, feathers puffed, clinging to Ginny's sleeve like a child refusing bath time. Molt sighed. "He's a ghost pigeon. His flesh is already in the ground. This is only spirit." A thoughtful tremor passed through the cavern. "Excellent," the worm god said. "Then he has already fed the world. All things return." Mr. Feathers made a strangled coo of protest and climbed higher up Ginny's arm. A small cluster of worms surfaced near Molt's feet, plump, glistening, expectant. The god's voice softened. "Peckish? Help yourself." Molt hesitated. It would be rude to decline. He picked one up gently and swallowed it whole. Warm, earthy, faintly sweet. "Thank you," he said. The worm god radiated pleasure. "You honour us." Molt wiped his mouth discreetly. "I like the ones who eat us," the god said warmly. "Moles, hedgehogs, badgers, birds. They work hard. They keep the cycle moving. They could eat 10 times their weight and still we would endure." Molt returned to business. "Do you have any grievances for the office? Does the pack still hold?" The worm god laughed, a soft shifting tremor through the soil. "Grievances? No. The world is vast. My people go where they please. We are eaten. We return. We multiply. It is a good life. The pact will always hold." Molt waited. "All creatures with spines are my children," the god said softly. "You grew up. You changed. You walked away from the soil. That is the way of things." The god's tone changed, not darker, but deeper. "There is only this," it said. "Something stirs beneath the roots." Molt's scales tightened. "Beneath your domain?" "Beneath all domains," the god murmured. "A tremor not my own. A movement I cannot explain." "It is not old movement," the worm god continued. "If it were ancient, I would have known it since the world was mud. This is new, since the last of your kind visited me. A child's heartbeat to me, but wrong. Wrong in shape, wrong in purpose." "I cannot tell what it is," the god said, "only that it is not mine, and it is not welcome." Ginny drifted closer to Molt, silent. Mr. Feathers pressed himself flat against her shoulder. Molt swallowed. "Can you keep listening?" he asked quietly. "Please, if anything changes, anything at all, I'll send someone, regularly." The worm god's vast body shifted, a slow tidal motion. "I will listen," it said. "The deep remembers, and when it speaks, you will want to hear." "It may be nothing," the worm god said gently, "or it may be something that will not matter until long after your kind is gone. I cannot tell. I only know it is new." Molt bowed again, deeper this time. "Thank you." The god's warmth pressed gently against him, a farewell, a blessing, a reassurance. "Go well, surface walker. The soil holds you kindly." The cavern dimmed, the earth rose, the world folded outward. Molt found himself back in the field. The rain had stopped, the air was sharp with petrichor, that clean mineral scent of earth after rain. Ginny hovered beside him. Mr. Feathers clung to her hair like a damp, traumatised brooch. Molt exhaled. "Right," he muttered. "Beetles next." Mr. Feathers made a faint, despairing coo. Ginny patted him gently. Molt looked at the sky, pale and clearing. The Beetle Regent. The threshold was a hollow log in an ancient woodland. Molt crawled through, a tight squeeze, and emerged into a world of amber light and towering fungi. The air was warm and resin-scented. Sap glistened on bark like trapped stars. A perfect wing of moss lay ahead, the ancient duelling circle. At its centre stood Lord Stag, tall as a shire horse but broader, mandibles curved like ceremonial blades, carapace lacquered in iridescent greens and golds. Around him, a dozen beetles of similar size stood in still formation, the honour guard, each armoured like a knight carved from living resin. Molt bowed. "Lord Stagg, I'm here on behalf of the office, to hear any grievances and to ensure the old pact still holds true." Lord Stagg inclined his head in the mandible salute. He circled Molt, antennae raised, lamellae opening and closing as he assessed Molt's scent. "You smell of worm realm," he said, "and spider silk, and rat blessing. You have travelled far, shellless one." "Indeed," Molt replied, bowing again. "You carry no shell," Lord Stagg observed. "No." "A bold choice." Two beetles stepped into the moss ring. They raised their mandibles in salute. "A joust," Lord Stagg said. "You arrive at a fortunate moment." Ginny brightened instantly. The duel was ritual, not violent. Mandibles locking, lifting, twisting with slow, deliberate grace. One beetle flipped the other gently onto its back. The honour guard clicked in approval. Ginny drifted forward, delighted. "That one," she whispered, pointing at the victor. The beetle stood taller under her attention. Mr. Feathers fluttered down, landing with a soft plop. He stared at the beetles with reverent horror. Molt's stomach growled. Lord Stagg turned. "Ah, you come from the worm god's realm. He lets you eat his subjects." A pause. "Do not try that here." "I wasn't going to." "He was thinking about it." "I was not." Lord Stagg clicked once, amused. "Honesty is armour. Wear it well." He gestured with a sweeping arc of a mandible toward a vast fallen oak, hollowed by time, polished by generations of beetles until it gleamed like a lacquered hall. "Come, guests of the moss ring are owed comfort." Two great beetles stepped forward, broad-backed, steady, their carapaces patterned like burnished shields. Molt climbed onto one with awkward dignity. Ginny settled onto the other as though she'd been riding beetles all her life. Mr. Feathers clung to her sleeve, making small despairing coos. The beetles carried them toward the log castle at a slow ceremonial pace. Inside, the air was warm and sweet with sap. Amber light filtered through cracks in the wood, turning the interior into a cathedral of honeyed gold. Lord Stagg's attendants brought offerings, thick tree sap, slices of fermenting fruit, curls of pale fungal flesh, and shavings of sweet decayed wood. Ginny accepted everything with delight. Molt took a cautious sip of sap, surprisingly pleasant. Lord Stagg settled beside them, posture relaxed, for a beetle, almost conversational. "What news from the other realms?" he asked. "Does the Spider King still weave prophecies no one asked for? Does the Rat Court still argue about crumbs? Has the Pike Sovereign stopped sulking about the drought?" Molt answered each in turn. Lord Stagg listened with the patient interest of someone who has seen 1,000 cycles and still enjoys hearing how the world turns. When the talk turned to grievances, his tone shifted, not angry, but solemn. "It is not only one meadow," he said. "Across many woods, human clear the undergrowth too quickly. They tidy what should be wild. They rake away the rot. They starve the larvae. They break the old paths." He tapped the log beneath them. "We are creatures of shadow and decay. When the forest is too clean, we vanish." Molt wrote it down. "By mandible and moss ring, the pact endures." Ginny drifted forward and tied a small ribbon, pale blue, to Lord Stagg's mandible. "For lack," she said. Lord Stagg froze, overwhelmed. "You bless me," he said softly, "and through me the whole court." His antennae twitched, a subtle uneasy motion. "You carry the scent of deep earth worry," he said. "The worm god has spoken." "Yes." "I do not feel what he feels," Lord Stagg said. "My realm is bark and leaf, not soil, but the roots whisper of unease, a pressure, a shift, something that does not belong to the forest." "Do you know what it is?" "No." His mandibles tightened. "And that is what troubles me." He bowed, a slow nightly dip of the head. "You are welcome here always, spirit child, and you, shellless one, and even your trembling bird." Molt bowed in return. Ginny drifted after him, smiling. "My favourite," she said simply. Mr. Feathers flapped through the sky, seemingly enjoying the warm day. As they left the battle realm, Molt checked his notes. Something was wrong. Not with the spirits, their grievances were normal, predictable, even mundane. But the pattern, the spider god's warning, the worm god's tremor, Lord Stagg's talk of stirrings, it all looked ominous. But prophecies were vague at the best of times. Tremors could be magnetic shifts, deep earth murmurs, things that took millennia to matter, if they mattered at all. And against his nature, Molt felt good. A whole day with his ghost family. The mammal child who followed him, the ridiculous pigeon who trusted him, and his chest felt lighter than it had in years. Ginny floated beside him, content. Mr. Feathers perched on his shoulder, cooing softly, alert but calm. Molt closed his notebook. "Just the mustard court tomorrow," he said. "A walk in the park." He paused, surprising even himself. "Then I'm taking a week off. I deserve it." Ginny nodded. Mr. Feathers made a doubtful sound. Molt looked at the sky, bright and sunny. What could possibly go wrong?